Right, let's expand the conversation. We're joined now by Wits University Professor Emeritus and Research Consultant Susan Booysen. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, what we listened to there was President Cyril Ramaphosa almost setting the tone of what we can expect to hear in his address as the ANC celebrates 113 years this weekend. And just really listening to how he is talking about how the ANC will rise again and its original status of being the leading organization in South Africa will happen. What will you be looking out for as we listen to the January 8th statement this weekend?
Good evening, Paul. Yes, indeed. The main theme I think all of us will be looking out for is further evidence or definitive evidence that the ANC is in fact managing to renew, managing to reconnect to its base, and not just doing it in abstract ideological broad statement terms, but in terms of concrete deliverables and particularly economic issues like unemployment, the obvious ones, economic growth, progress, development. And we know, of course, that for several decades now, 3 decades in fact, that has been the predominant ANC narrative. And there are always references to plans, reference to how the government will be doing things, reference to the ANC that will instruct government to do certain things. And even after 30 years, that is not being given enough effect.
Yeah.
And so this time we will really look at as to how the ANC now in a coalition government will be able to manage government, if it will be able to do it better, and what evidence, what plans it will be putting forward to that, because those are the specific things, together with community living conditions, that I think I shall be looking out for.
At the same time, we know that we heard President Ramaphosa reacting to the letter sent by former President Jacob Zuma asking and seeking membership reinstatement. And all of this happens despite him starting his own party, and he believes there's nothing untoward about wanting to hold dual party membership, very much like members of the ANC's alliance partner, the SACP. What are your thoughts around this?
Yes, it's interesting, the analogy to the SACP, especially now that SACP has stated renewed intentions to actually contest and oppose against the ANC in 2026 local government elections. And that means the MKP is not that far off that standard that has been set. But of course, we know that in SACP's case, it is really not going to have much effect. But in local government elections, the MKP, we know that there are probably going to be a big effects that we're going to see, and that it will probably be able to do well in those elections, given that the party can continuously sustain itself. And that makes it an interesting case in South African party politics. Political parties are weak internally, and it's not just the ANC that is weak internally. Most of the political parties are. They're fragile, they're in flux, and yet they have to prepare to cooperate in preparation for new state elections. So, and the floodgates were really opened, domino effect triggered through the ANC's loss of majority in last year's elections. But the knock-on effect is relevant to all political parties. So it is an immense time of realignment, new alliances being sought in the run-up to the next local government elections.
How do you interpret former President Jacob Zuma's letter? I mean, what is it about? I mean, what message is he trying to convey by, I mean, it's almost seemingly cheeky to send such a letter.
Indeed. While he has broken rules, really, in terms of refusing to attend a virtual disciplinary hearing and sending a representative, yes, Tony Ngeni represented him there, but ignoring those rules and now arguing that the ANC has not followed the regulated specifications of its own disciplinary processes. There may be a few grey areas, but it seems as if the ANC has fulfilled its obligations in terms of that disciplinary hearing, and it was Jacob Zuma's choice not to be a direct part of it.
Yeah.
And now the demands are for full records, for reversal of the decision. And it is really a tactics and strategy from Zuma's side to put himself not just as a thorn in the flesh of the ANC and to continue doing these little strategic terror attacks on his former organization, but to ensure that the ANC really has its hands full in the week of run up to the 113 celebrations, which by all indications haven't gone very smoothly. And these tactics by Jacob Zuma will definitely add further thorns in that flesh. So it is a very deliberate strategy, very much timed to this specific week to make things even more difficult for the ANC.
Yeah, because all eyes will already be on the question about the venue. I mean, Ramaphosa is preparing to face supporters at the Khayelitsha Stadium in Cape Town. Of course, the stadium has a capacity of 22,000. That's a far cry from the 100,000 that the FNB Stadium can hold, which was the venue that was used in previous years. There'll be a lot of eyes on the numbers come Saturday, won't they?
Indeed, and it is a tough task for the ANC because the ANC has not been doing well electorally in the Western Cape at all. It has been going backward when it had hoped to advance, and now it's probably come to the Western Cape for this important event to show some opposition against its main coalition partner, the DA, to probably try to show strategy and strength that it can operate and can have a big presence in Democratic Alliance heartland. But by indication so far, that has not been working out well.
Yeah.
So the DA is strong in this province. The ANC is not, and it is a very risky venture to come into a province like that. And it's realistic then to go for a smaller stadium to fill it up to the best of their ability. But it is not an overall strong statement at all.
We also know that engagements of a possible merger of the other smaller political parties in Parliament are ongoing. Build One South Africa, Action SA, Rise, Mzansi and the Good Party. They're looking to join forces ahead of the 2026 local government elections. What kind of political dynamic does this present?
That's fascinating, yes. It again reinforces this point that there's so much flux in political bodies. And one of the big problems in contestation in elections and the vote outcomes was that there's so much fragmentation, and that just a handful of the overall number of parties contesting in the end managed to win seats. So consolidation of some center, and I believe they're calling themselves a democratic centrist caucus, that potentially early days they've apparently only started talking, but if that comes together, it will probably be something that grabs the imagination of voters, and it will show a little splintering off, for example, the GNU and GNU coalition. Not much, small parties. These parties that are talking so far jointly have 11 seats out of Parliament's total. So small, and at least some of these parties already have a presence in the coalition, even if they're not in cabinet, chair some parliamentary committees. And so that will be interesting to see whether there's a new type of dynamic that develops around that, in that they can be both part of a different caucus or part of more than one. Could they be part of more than one caucus?
Yeah.
And how that would impact on the broad relations. But I suspect they would have to choose between being in the GNU side of things or a new centrist coalition. But it reinforces the point that change is underway in party politics in South Africa. Coalition politics tend to have unforeseen outcomes.
Yeah.
Also, where political parties can merge that previously had not had those intentions. The ANC, of course, is in a very difficult position that it is contested internally, and it's many of its own members feel the ANC should rather align with either the EFF or with the MK party, while others think there is a natural alignment convergence with the Democratic Alliance. And all of these smaller moves are also going to contribute to putting more pressure on the ANC, still the biggest of the political parties, although not on outright majority level, but it's going to put pressure on the ANC to show more of its colors as to where it truly wants to align, because that is also one of the demands that the electorate is going to make on future elections.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for weighing in on the conversation, leaving it there. Of course, an interesting political climate indeed. Speaking there to Wits University Professor Emeritus and Research Consultant Susan Booysen.